Welcome to Worthy the Podcast, where we have conversations about what it means to feel worthy and what happens when we don't. I'm your host, Jessica Raimondi. Okay, welcome back to Worthy, guys. So another great episode from LA. I'm sitting here with my bestie and business partner once again. I know you guys really loved when she was on last time. We had a really nice conversation about friendship. And so as this podcast is airing, it's actually the week of my 45th birthday.
Maybe even on the day, right?
It's the day after. I think that'll... Oh, no, it is. No,
it's Tuesday's your birthday.
No, Monday.
That's okay.
It's okay. We've only been friends 25 years. No, it'll air the day after the birthday. So anyway, week of 45, which is wild. And I thought we'd kind of do something different this episode, which is like a semi kind of solo episode for you guys. Yet Kemp here is going to turn the tables and interview me in a way. And of course, I'm going to get real with you guys on this conversation. This is probably the most vulnerable I will be or have been. And yeah, I just hope it whoever needs to hear it hears it. And so, oh yeah. Thanks. So take it away, Kemp.
Okay. So we're turning 45. You're turning 45.
Yeah, you're a year behind.
I know.
I
wasn't going to announce that, but I was going to rub that in.
Age before
beauty. Age before beauty. So I think that it's a really important milestone in our lives.
It is.
And you've had a big year.
It has been a year.
If I could sum up your year, or if you could sum up your year, I know how I would sum it up.
Mm-hmm.
If you could sum up your year with one overall, like kind of not phrase, but sentence, like how would you describe this past year?
This year was me finding my voice. This was the year. Like really finding my voice in so many different areas. I mean, clearly we started a podcast, so it's like the ultimate way of using my voice. But we came here through I came here to the microphone through like going through a lot of pain, and or a lot of change and a lot of transition. So it was like the hardest year in so many ways, but it was like the biggest growth year and so many cool milestones and things from it.
And I think that that's kind of what brought us to this episode, was that this has been a year of finding your voice.
Yeah.
And not just literally, but also metaphorically. And the thing that I think that is really important that we're going to talk about in this episode is that you exercised that voice in a specific situation at the end of this year. So leading into your 45th birthday, you experienced something maybe that you've never experienced before. And I'm going to let you tell that story. But I think it's such an important topic for us to dive into, especially as women. Like, I think that we're always searching for our voice, how to have a voice, when to have a voice, when do we feel unheard, and what that brings up for us. And I'm not saying that men don't experience the same thing.
But we're women, so we can talk from that point of
view. Right.
So
we're going to talk from that point of view. And I think, if you trace it back.
Societally.
Yeah, societally, women have had to fight for a voice from the beginning of time.
Yeah, and I think that was we can get to that, but it was an interesting thing we touched on when we were talking about this episode yesterday. It's like, so let's make sure we circle back to that.
Yeah, we're going to circle back to that. So that's kind of the basis of all of this. As you are embarking into your 45th year, we're talking about the voice that just the foundation of finding your voice in this past year and what that looks like for going into this next year. But I want to start with a very raw conversation about what happened at the end of 44.
Yeah. So towards the end of the year and the beginning of the new year, I really started to kind of come alive again. And it was a nice feeling to kind of step into my femininity again, to, feeling sexy, feeling like, I was getting attention. I was starting to meet people, and I don't know, it was just fun again, I felt like,
yourself.
yeah, I was feeling myself. I was. And, I started to kind of like let the walls down a little bit, that have been up, and not even like in a bad way. It was just like, it was time,
Yeah.
And so I like stepped out onto the town and, again, like started meeting people, started, gaining attention, being open to attention again. I guess that was the way to put it. And so, yeah, so I was at a bar, which, is usually where I meet people because I'm a social person, and I feel like that's just been the way things have been. And I was with some friends, and it was a little later in the evening, probably like 11, and I was at a local bar, and I went to the bathroom, and I had like a group of people at this section of the bar, and then when I came back from the bathroom, this guy was sitting in the bar stool next to mine, and it was like he was waiting for me. Really clean cut, very like good looking. I could tell he was a little bit like my age or a little older, which was nice because that's not usually my MO. And I just kind of sat down and was like, and he was like, "Hi." And I was like, "Hi." And I had like, it was just the oddest thing because it was like a recognition, but it like, at the same time, I had no idea who this person was or where he came from. And he was clearly by himself. And he started talking to me, and he was within, I would say, maybe 15 minutes. I was like so intrigued and almost like a little bit swept off my feet. So this guy was incredibly charming. I, at the first, didn't even think like in any sort of a creepy way, but he was like confident and into me. And, the conversation flowed and we were laughing. And I kind of felt like, wow, am I actually meeting somebody my age? Or, am I actually meeting someone that, we were talked about work. It seemed to be, successful. And he didn't live here, but he was traveling. He travels here all the time. And he's kind of possibly moving back here from the Midwest. And we talked about family a little. It was like this whole conversation. It probably was, all in all, maybe 45 minutes. But within the first 15 minutes, I felt like, am I really meeting the person who I could actually like have something with? I know that kind of sounds crazy, but
here's why it's that I would be hard pressed to find a woman, and I think maybe at our age we're all like, no, the fairy tale. Okay.
Yeah.
The fairy tale. And
Right.
especially, I can speak for us,
Right.
growing up with parents who fell madly in love with each other,
Yeah.
almost like a love at first sight energy connection, which we grew up believing in.
Oh, I'm such a romantic,
1,000%.
And I believe when you know, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so when we operating through life with that like idea, who doesn't want a fairy tale? Sorry, who doesn't want to like
Totally
to have that immediate connection? Because you hear about it all the time. We just had a guest on yesterday that it's fairy tale gives it it's a connotation, but like it is that instant connection, that energy, that's
an intuitive knowing, yeah,
that we all want and maybe search for. So it's not weird that you sat there and had a moment where you're like, is this are our souls connecting? Like this is on all the things. Check.
Well, that was what it was. It was interesting because coming out of the year, and we'll get to that, but it just like I kind of was getting much clearer about what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And it was literally as if God dropped him in front of me.
Totally.
Right. And to be honest with you, I wasn't initially attracted to this person. Again, he wasn't really my type, and not just because of the age, and I joke about that, but it's more just he was like a good-looking guy, not something I would gravitate towards normally, but his confidence and like I could tell he had, established himself, he's comfortable in his skin, and like he knew what he wanted, and that was me. You know what I mean? And there's something about that, and he made it very clear. So he was like, I'm going to come back next weekend and I'm going to take you out, and like, but in the meantime, I think we should continue hanging out. And I was just kind of like, I was with my friends, so I wasn't going to like leave them. And I had made a commitment to myself that I was not having one night stands anymore. And I made that very clear.
With him.
With him. Yeah. And we joked and I was like, I'm not going, gonna go have sex with you. And, obvious, look, would he have loved, any person in that situation? But I felt like, no, I know who I am in that, and I'm not going to do that, just so you know, like we can continue hanging out, but that's not happening. Right. Yeah. And I said, I'm also here with friends. So like you can also take me out next weekend. But he was pretty persistent in the fact that like this is good. Like, let's keep this going, And I mean, he had me so thrown off guard, and it felt like it was in the best of ways. And again, like that feeling of being swept off your feet, in a way, I was like, is this really happening? I mean, I was looking around, I was like, where did you come from? Which, is a valid question, but because he wasn't there with anybody, he did come. It was kind of a divey bar.
And you kind of want to just let go and lean in.
Yeah. So I was like, look, let's just hang out. He was really great to my friends, such a gentleman, and bought us drinks and things like that. And then, I was like, okay, we can go back and hang out in your hotel. I was like, whatever, we can make out, but I'm not having sex. He's like, no sex. And we pinky promised. And that's like a little thing for me. It's like when somebody does that, it means something to me. And it sounds silly. I don't even know where it comes from, but I was like, wow, he gets it,
Being a kid.
Yeah. And so we had a great conversation in the Uber. He paid for the Uber. He paid for my drinks. He paid for my friends' drinks, all smooth and great. And so we go back to his hotel and, we talked, we kissed. And then things turned. And, we, without getting into things, the pinky promise was not kept. And there were attempts made to try to have sex with me. And I wasn't having it. But, and so I said that in the middle of, the making out. And I said, no, we said we're not going to do that. And it, obviously initially, even the fact that he had tried to was so alarming or just just disappointing. And then things got a little bit more forceful, or I will say aggressive. And I froze for a second, and then I just yelled and I said, stop. And he wasn't trying to force himself to have sex with me, but he was aggressively trying to hold me there, if that makes sense.
Pin you down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was acting as if it was in a playful way, but it was not. Yeah. And I knew that's it. So I jumped up and I swear to God, my clothes, my shirt came right back on, you know what I mean? And because I didn't necessarily have my clothes off either, but I was just everything happened in 5 seconds. I was like, nope, I have to go. This doesn't feel good. And he got up and he just stood there and he was like, what are you doing? And I said, look, I told you I wasn't having sex and you keep trying to do that. And that's fucked up. And he said, don't make up stories. What are you talking about? Don't make up stories. And my whole body.
He never promised.
No, that it was that he was trying to have sex with me.
Oh.
It was obvious because when it was happening, I said,
oh, so he's saying, I'm not trying to have sex with you. That's
right.
What's happening.
Don't make up stories. Lord. Yeah. So then I was like, oh, we're dealing with a predator or narcissist or whatever. Well, actually, I didn't even think predator yet. But so I little
bit of gaslighting.
It was a total gaslighting.
Yeah.
So, and then I said, that's, he goes, come on. He's like, God, why can't I meet a normal girl? He goes, really? He's like, don't fuck this up. Don't fuck this up. He's like, I like you. I really like you. And I was like,
oh, so it's your fault. You're not feeling safe in a situation.
Yeah. And I said, this doesn't feel good. I go, it's fine. And because I didn't know what else he would try to do. So I said, you know what? It's fine. Why don't you call me later? Why don't you just call me? I'm going to go. He's like, what was the other thing he said? Do you remember what I said? It was, he said 4 things.
He said, don't be that girl.
Don't be that girl. Why can't I meet a normal girl? Don't make up stories. Yeah. And
that was,
And it was just oh, that's who you are, And so luckily I stood my ground and I again just grabbed my stuff and I said, I tried to like placate the situation a little bit, like kind of just like
keep it cool.
I was like, okay, no, it's fine. Like, I'm gonna go like, but he was like, really, you're gonna do that? Like, I was like, you can, yeah. I was like, why don't you call me? I don't even know if I gave him my number. I didn't care. I was just like, get me out of here. He's like, well, I can try to call you an Uber, but I don't know where my phone is. I go, oh, no. Like, I'm good.
Yeah.
And then I ran out.
Well, you don't want him to know where you live either.
Of course.
At this point.
Of course. So I just ran out and I was kind of in shock. I was obviously so happy that nothing else happened. And then I went home, whatever. I met my friend again and I went home and then and told him what happened. And
were you processing at this moment that you had been sexually assaulted?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, I was 100% sexually assaulted.
Yeah, but as you were leaving, did that process in the moment, or was it a later? Because I know that when we spoke the next day,
I knew it immediately.
You knew it immediately.
Yeah.
And you used that voice, and you spoke up.
Yes, and I yeah. So what happened after, what I think was the more challenging thing, let me put it this way: I've done enough work to know that wasn't my fault, so to speak.
Yeah.
However, I did go to that place that I think a lot of us do, which is I somehow did something to
bring that up. Yeah.
So there was a shame in even talking about it as if it was sexual assault.
Mm-hmm.
Now I knew I could with you and with the few girls that I told in Miami, but because I knew that they would say that and validate that, but it's almost like, was it?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Like full
and right, like, because it wasn't like intercourse, right?
Yeah.
But and so I just think I felt, I don't know if I want to tell anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I knew what I needed to do. I can separate myself from the situation. It didn't get any further. But then I was like, but that still happened.
Yeah. Well, there's different degrees of sexual assault, right? And I think that women have experienced different degrees of sexual assault, and one does not make you can't compare. And I think that it's your experience is your experience, and it was still sexual assault, and it doesn't make that feeling of like, I don't want to say that it was this because will that take away from somebody else's
a little bit of that. Sure.
That may involve like a higher degree of sexual assault, or harm,
right.
Rape, penetration. Like that's where I'm talking about. There's different degrees.
Yes, all that was going through my head.
In the wake of the Me Too movement, like we can all agree upon that, right?
But then I was gaslighting myself.
Course, because you didn't want to identify it as what it was. You felt bad identifying it as what it was. There was a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, which I think happens with sexual assault anyhow. For those of us who have experienced it,
totally.
Yes, you can easily go to a place of what did I do to bring this on, and the guilt and the shame surrounding it.
There's kind of two things that happen. It's like my aftermath of that, and then the freezing and fawning that can happen in that situation. And I think you and I wanted to bring this conversation to light because it was the first time I didn't fawn and just go through with something. Again, successful, handsome guy, into me, like, of course he's turned on. Of course he wants to have sex. You know what I mean? Like, what guy wouldn't, that kind of thing. And maybe just like gaslit myself in the moment.
Yeah.
But I could feel that his energy has shifted and it was not about that. And the fawning and the freezing is, I think, 20 something years ago.
Right.
I would have slept with him out of that. Just gaslighting myself. Maybe, here we are. I came here.
Yeah.
I came here.
Like, maybe he's right. Don't be that girl. Okay, Jessica,
Like,
don't be that girl.
exactly.
Um, it- and what's interesting is what happened the next day. When we spoke, it felt like you found your voice in that moment. You spoke up, you got out, you protected yourself.
I did.
Big difference from what could have happened,
Where I didn't
20
say
years
anything.
ago.
I mean,
Right.
obviously we can't control what they do in those
Of course.
situations. I was lucky. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the next day, when you were explaining to me what happened, I felt like you were struggling again with finding your voice and speaking up and talking about what had happened, even to yourself, and so I think that it's interesting.
Well, I like took a step forward and then, and then I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, and there's something to that, like the worthiness behind stepping into your voice. I disappointed somebody, right? And so sometimes and this is again part of this conversation I know we want to have, is like, back 20 years ago, Jessica, with no skills, no connection to her, no evolution, no, wisdom and knowledge and all that. Like, I would have felt I owed him something. I wouldn't have wanted to disappoint him, because my story is that when I ask for what I need or say what I want, I will be abandoned.
Right.
And everybody has a little story like that when it comes
Sure.
to speaking up.
Yeah.
About anything.
There's a fear.
Right. But it was a little, and kind of, as I still process this, part of me wants to just shut it down.
Yeah.
And sweep it under the rug and just like, whatever.
Yeah.
But I think, and part of me is mad that I didn't have his number so I could, do something about it
Right.
for the next person, because it was so, it was so calculated. Like, thinking back now, this is what I struggle with, is like, how did I not pick up on all the love bombing and and again, it wasn't so overt. It was just this cocky confidence, assuredness, and feeling chosen.
All great things.
Yeah.
All things that, like,
right. The right person could say, by
Yeah.
the way, but it was so attractive. And I felt like, oh, this is actually happening. And it was so disappointing to know that it was like the exact opposite. And then, and so what I've struggled with is, like, after everything I've been through in life, in relationships, and then after this year, like, how could I be in that situation again?
Well, you're human.
Yeah.
You're a single woman in your 40s. You're dating, you're staying open. Yeah. You're not closing off your heart, which would have been easy to do this year, given how the year started. Right? And so you were finally feeling healed and had worked through that heartbreak of the year, and you were staying open. And it is, you think about, like, even just watching the JFK and the love story, right? That's on right now. It's like, you think about that organic meeting and the confidence and the pursuit, the man pursuing the woman. It's like all of those things that you even watch on a show.
Yeah. And honestly,
just today, it's like, that's all attractive. You want that.
And that's a little bit how I've met people,
Yeah. And it's actually one of, I think, your best qualities is that you always stay open to love, be it a friendship or a relationship. But no matter how much trauma or different experiences or heartbreak you've gone throughout the course of your life, you still stay open. And I've seen so many people shut down after heartbreak. Guilty.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's easy to shut down and go into protective mode of, I'm not going to let anyone in, because if I do, they could hurt me like I just got hurt. I'm good.
Well, I think...
And you don't do that.
Well, I think that, to be honest with you, the reason for that is because I do a postmortem, on relationships. And, I have to look at my part, and I have to not blaming. I'm just saying I have to look at, like, from beginning to end, like, what happened. And every situation is so different. And I am so different in them. The last one, starting off the year, like, thinking, really, like, feeling like so hopeful with this person and, feeling such a strong connection.
Excited.
I was so excited. And there was a lot of obstacles.
Yeah.
Distance, other people, whatever, other life situations, just timing. But I remember when I got into that, I got into it not knowing what I wanted. And I met somebody who didn't know what he wanted.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to me, and so it was a little chaotic in a way from the beginning because I wasn't sure.
Right.
But once I knew I wanted that, like my heart was open, and then, but I think but this is the postmortem, and the lesson is kind of like, but when I knew I wanted more or needed more or anything, like I don't know, more communication, whatever it was, I shut down.
You didn't use your voice.
I did not use my voice for fear of not rocking the boat that was this person's kind of lot going on life, and therefore maybe losing him.
Right.
And the funny thing is that we lost each other anyway, and it blew up, and I'm not saying that has any, that's clearly not just my fault, but
why not risk rocking?
Well, it happened anyway.
Yeah. For what you want and what you need.
And
you realize what you want.
I don't know why. I don't know how I was back there in that situation where I was like, so I think it was because I was dealing, with somebody that had prefaced there was a lot going on. And so I already felt like maybe you couldn't
add to that.
I couldn't add to it. But I'm not even, this person wasn't even saying I couldn't, by the way. It was just my decision I made. And that's self-abandonment. Yeah. And then when it came down to it, I could no longer abandon myself. And so, it kind of all blew up. But like realizing that no matter how it ended, that if I do a postmortem on the entire thing, that is my part. You know what I mean? And so I didn't ever want to be in that position again.
Right.
And I wanted to be more clear going into things, so I kept to myself for quite a while this year because I wasn't interested in having casual sex. I wasn't, which sometimes I enjoy, right? Like, I was not into any of that until I could be clear about what I wanted and could, if I met somebody, be very clear about whatever it was. Yeah. Like, this is where I'm available. This is what I'm looking for. Or like, make sure we're on the same page,
So we started the year with abandoning your voice, not speaking up, being afraid to rock the boat.
And loss.
Yeah. And experiencing loss.
Yeah.
And some heartbreak.
Yeah.
And then you cracked your heart back open.
Yes.
Spent the year working on finding that voice.
Exactly.
And then here we are, ending the year 44, going into 45. Almost a year later, you used your voice in a way that protected you so profoundly.
Yeah.
Because who knows what could have happened if you didn't get out of there.
Yeah.
It sounded like this guy was truly a predator.
Yeah.
Didn't sound like his intentions were in the best place.
They weren't. And again, energetically, I knew that. And I was really grateful that intuitively I could feel that. Not everybody has that connection to their intuition at different stages of their lives. So, but yes, I think he could feel my confidence and my power in the moment. And I think that might be why things didn't, because like maybe that's not the type of person he's used to dealing with.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. So here's a question for you.
Yeah.
What would you say? I think, look, I don't want to generalize and say a lot of us women, I just can relate. I've been in the situation. So it's very relatable to me. I've been paralyzed in that situation. Yeah. I've said yes when I've wanted to say no.
Sure.
And it is traumatic, and it's taken, years of therapy and reflecting and EMDR, which is fantastic. Yeah. What would you say? Because here's the thing, it can happen at any age. And I think our younger selves, especially, it starts at a young age, right? It starts at a young age that when you get paralyzed, like you don't want to be the girl that like is a prude in high school or has the reputation for it, but you also don't want to be the girl who's a slut and have the reputation for that. So it's difficult. It's like this total minefield that we have to navigate as women, and young girls have to navigate. And I'm sure I'm sure this happens with guys too, to some degree. I'm sure that there is, sexual, trauma that pressure that they find themselves in, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about women.
Right.
So what would you say, having been in that situation where you feel paralyzed, and then having just recently, at the age of almost 45, moving through that and using your voice and sticking up for yourself and saying exactly what felt good and did not feel good? How do we get there? How do we move through that, the first initial moment of feeling paralyzed?
So much compassion. So from there to here kind of thing.
Yeah, just when you find yourself in that position where you feel paralyzed and you can't speak up for yourself, how do you find your voice?
Yeah.
How do you tap into your voice?
I think the first thing is realizing that you feel paralyzed. Because I believe that is a signal of your body telling you it's not safe. Okay? Now, you could be in a situation that is actually physically not safe, right? And maybe being paralyzed and moving through it is the way you get out of it, right? That in very extreme situations, fawning is the way we survive, right? In some cases, and that is okay, right? Let's be clear that there's no right or wrong. There's experience. And we're not taught, there is violent sexual assault that is done to women constantly. This was not violent, but I think in some cases that's necessary to survive those moments, right? And then in other situations of immense pressure or, seemingly more benign situations, I think recognizing that your body is trying to tell you something. And so whatever that is, again, if you have to do it to survive and move through whatever that is your body is telling you, then great. If it's more something that you can be with later, right? If you can, if you've gone through a situation where, like, let's just say something almost happened, or we did something that we didn't want to do and we didn't use our voice, let's look at that, because first of all, like you said, it's old.
Yeah.
It's old, that sense of feeling the need to please somebody else or not rock a boat or not defend yourself or stick up for yourself because of an outcome that you fear. That is usually so old, right? And for me, that comes from my childhood, an upbringing, where things were very chaotic and not quite safe to say what I felt, and that it was going to be heard, and that it wasn't going to be met with like anger or punishment, right? So it was like walking on eggshells, right? Everybody's situation is different. So there has to be an acknowledgement of why that is happening.
Right.
And then let's work on that with somebody, obviously, hopefully that is of a therapist or coach nature that can help you, because ultimately this year for me has been me, not only it's finding my voice, but it's also understanding my needs and my desires and my need for connection in a safe way, or my need for a lively, intense relationship that's also safe.
Yeah.
Right. And getting really clear about who you are. It takes time, but it also takes some time alone.
Well, and I think at a young age, it's
so much different.
It's so different at a young age.
Yeah.
I think in high school, I wish somebody had told me to, or like reminded me to, and I was the prude in high school. So I was on the other end of it.
Yeah.
Like I had the reputation for being the prude, which I'll gladly take, looking back now. But it's I wish I had heard more, like value yourself more than any care of rocking the boat. Who cares? You know
Well,
what?
we
If
do care.
you're,
Yeah.
well, we do care, but if we can remind
The youth. Yeah.
the youth, to, like remind, I want my daughter to always feel like she can talk to me. But if she can't, because there probably will be a time, I want her to know that she can talk to her aunties because they will give her the wisdom, like in a different way, right? Of like, hey, you are worth more than any reputation some silly boy,
Right.
you know, or girl, whatever you fancy, is gonna place on you. High school is temporary. It does not define you.
And it's like life or death.
Right.
You know,
It feels like life or
the only
death.
thing that matters.
It does. It feels like life or death in the moment. But so many of these things, these right, the podcast is worthy. It's like so many self-worth issues, I think, I can speak for myself as a woman. It so much happens in high school that
Middle school too. I mean, I think that was
Sure.
my experience. That was my real, tough experience was through middle school.
And it's those moments where it's like, if we can just start at a younger age and reminding those that we love at a younger age that we're worth more and we're worth speaking up and our value is more than rocking the boat. Like, rock the fucking boat.
100%. But with that is like, there also needs to be an understanding, and I wish I also had this. It's like the need to fit in is innate. It's okay. It's totally normal because we are pack animals, in a sense. We are, the men go hunt, the women are in the red tent, taking care of we don't survive alone.
Yeah, we're not.
So the need to fit in is so natural. And I don't want to shame anybody that's been through that or teenagers, because it's such a need. It is a need, right? To belong.
I want to be liked.
To belong and to be loved, right? And to be touched. Those are needs, right? So this isn't, so when I think the better question is not like the fight or freeze things. It's like I wanted to know, why did I attract that in? Well, I'm ready for connection. And so I was out there bright and shiny.
Yeah.
Like, I was open. And sometimes, the bad gets in too. Sure. And it's like, and sometimes people see bright and shiny and open and trusting, and they want to get in there. They want to compromise that. And I think it took me a while to get to know my worth and value. Can it happen earlier? That's our mission, right? That's what Worthy is all about, is to try to spread this message so it gets in earlier, to give language and discussion and conversation to things that we maybe don't, when we feel, but we don't talk about. So ideally, I would love to get teenagers in on this, and get, or, elementary school, whatever it is, but there is always going to be a need to belong. I think it's the trusting and valuing yourself, like you said, that could be worked on much more. I don't think we're ever going to get rid of the pressure and peer pressure and things like that. But it's, what does it mean that I need that from somebody else? Because until until we can really sit in high school, I mean, I thought I was going to die during heartbreak. I thought, and some of my friends didn't, I've had conversations with friends and like, I don't understand, like, who cares? Like, I did. I'm a romantic. We're all built differently, but like, I would have done anything. I mean, I would have laid down in the street on fire, but that's codependency, right? And those are things that are triggered in childhood, and the need for somebody else's attention, love, affection, touch, whatever, beyond our own boundaries, like, sacrificing ourselves for that. That's where the healing is. That's the root. And I think I've just happened to really focus on that, especially this year. Like, I'm worth that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the whole point of this, of everything that we're doing. It's, how do you want to go into this next year then? Like, where do we go from here? You've started the year in one place, you've ended it in you've taken a situation that was traumatic and difficult, but also incredibly relatable.
Yeah.
I think that I know that there's a lot of women in some way can find themselves in a similar situation. So where do you go from here?
I mean, my intention really this year, especially, I can't believe I'm 45. I don't know how this happened.
I feel like
It's
we were
it's
17 when we
17 and
meeting each
18 when we met.
other
I know.
at the Hojo.
Oh my gosh.
Boston.
It's really
But here
it's
we
really
are.
messing with me,
Yeah.
this week. No, it's just incredible to think that that's all. Anyway, is that I want to just continue to be as authentically me as I can, no matter who stays or who goes. I want to be able to feel safe in my own body and life, that I will say whatever I need to say because
Yeah.
I trust myself, and I feel like I like being me, and I want to, if you can't see all of me, or if I feel like I can't be all, I don't know, I would just do things so differently, I think I just want to, continue to use my voice and continue to really honor what I need, because I think for the most part, my experience, as shitty as this one was, like, I have people that around me that would love to know how to love me better, or how to love me, what makes it right. That's the other thing here, is like going into relationships, being open to relationships again, is like being open to like the person that you're in a relationship with, like how, like we talked about in the friendship episode, like what feels good to you, like what do you need?
Yeah.
What do you need? And I want to be a better partner in that. Like, what do going into relationships? It's like, what do you need to feel safe and loved?
Right. Because it is a two-way street, and it should always be a two-way
And
street.
I'm opening my heart wildly to like a healthy, available, safe but fun and exciting, relationship, that there's not anything we can say that, will push the other one away.
Yeah.
I mean, I have that in our friendships, and my friendships, and my family, thank God. I mean, we've done so much work, my family and I, after, and I was able to, heal a lot of that stuff that I grew up with my parents, knowing, along the way, and we got to really talk about why things were chaotic at the time. And I've just done so much. I've been able to heal, and also like, fuck the healing. It's like, I'm also just stepping into like who I am.
Yeah.
Unapologetically, I guess.
I think the big thing that stands out to me, it's the conversations. You're having conversations with your family to heal. You're having conversations with yourself to heal. You're having conversations with others through this podcast. And that has become a source of healing.
Totally.
And what I would like to leave our listeners with is, if the conversations are so important, because it's about support, and it's about getting it out there, using our voice, right? And I just want to encourage everyone to talk about it. And if it's only with one friend, talk about it. If it's a therapist, talk about it. If it's with a sibling, I talk to my brother about everything. And he's not a woman. He doesn't understand half of it, but he listens.
I know.
And
sometimes you're surprised, right? Like,
totally.
if I had, just, sometimes we're afraid to speak up, and it's not even valid in that situation, because we don't know what doors could open when we are in relation to somebody, if we are just, brave enough to say what we need at the time. It could create even more intimacy. It could create even more trust. And I think you're right, though. Like, these conversations this year has been the way of like rebuilding my own self-trust, and also just like having hope and faith and like humanity, and helping people realize, like, I think that, you nailed this. There's just so much healing to be had in conversation.
And we want to have conversations with you. So I want to encourage everyone listening, anyone who has something to talk about, who has had a moment where they have struggled, if you've struggled finding your voice, if you've been through something that you don't know who to talk to, we're listening. Hit us up.
Yeah.
We are finding a lot of healing and growth and connecting. And that is a big reason for doing this. So we encourage people to write in.
Yeah.
Tell us what you want to talk about.
Our email's in the notes of the show.
Yeah.
So you can tell us anything.
And how you feel about this episode and finding your voice. And if this is something that resonates with you, we really do want to hear from you. And share your story. Maybe you've had a moment where you have found your voice or a moment where you have felt paralyzed. We want to hear your story. We want to hear from you. I think that's really important. Let's keep the conversation going.
Keep the conversation. And if you think this episode could help somebody else, please share it. Please. That's what this is all about. It's like paying it forward and keeping that line open.
I love you. Happy birthday.
Thank you. I love you so
much. I'm so proud of you for sticking up for yourself, rocking the boat, and getting the fuck out of there.
Thank you. Amen.
Okay, we're
gonna be doing this without you.
We're gonna have a great year.
We're gonna have a great year. We can and we will.
Love you, Olivia.
Love you, Olivia. Bye, guys. Thanks so much for listening and watching. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for listening to this episode of Worthy the Podcast. Our goal is to build a community, and we do that through people like you who listen, subscribe, and most importantly, share with someone you care about. Be sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening, as well as our YouTube channel. And if this episode resonated with you, leave a review. We want to hear from you. Thanks for being here, and remember, you've always been enough. Period. This podcast is meant to inspire and educate, but I'm not a licensed therapist or medical professional. Everything shared here is based on personal experience and perspective, so take what resonates and leave the rest.